Welcome back, everyone, to the How to Write a Book podcast. I'm excited for this episode, y'all. I was having such a good time. You will notice that this episode went way longer, one of my favorites. And me and Richard Lowe ended up talking even beyond the episode. Like, we just kept going. I probably should have recorded that too. It was really fascinating. But let me do a small introduction and let's dive in because we have a lot of ground to cover. So, Richard Lowe is just, oh my gosh, the ultimate ghostwriter. Is that what I can say? He is also known as the writing king. He has published many books of his own writing, and he's a professional ghostwriter. He is crushing that field. And I was, as you guys know, just super interested. I have talked about ghostwriting on the podcast. I've talked about my foray into ghostwriting. So all of the questions that I had for him were, I was just fascinated. They were coming from this place of, please tell me more. How can I know about this? Where can we find opportunities to not just improve our craft, but also to provide the service that we love to other people, to get paid for your writing, because isn't that ultimately, something that we want to do or want to accomplish, because it says so much about how people like our work, like our services. And so you're going to find some of the questions that I get to ask. I mean, maybe they're very newbie because my experience compared to Richard's is like very small. So I was able to ask so many different questions. He was so kind, very generous with his wisdom, and a lot of great resources. So there are some things that you're going to find that I'm finding out for the first time. And it's so interesting because, all the research that I've done in ghostwriting, a lot of people say the same thing, but there are also some nuances. I mean, how do you do this? Do you do this? Do you not do this? And I really love his authority on the subject, and I think you will too. So let's dive into it. The world of ghostwriting with Richard Lowe.
Welcome to the How to Write a Book podcast, the show that helps you plan, write, and publish your book, even if you're a beginner or just feel like one. Now, for your host, she's written over a dozen books and helps others bring their books to life. Here she is, Maciel.
All right, and welcome back to the How to Write a Book podcast. I'm here today with Richard Lowe, prolific ghostwriter. Richard, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you. And how are you?
I'm great. It's nice and cloudy here in LA. It's been a beautiful day. Where are you calling us from?
I'm in Florida.
Oh, nice. Okay, so not cloudy right now.
It is cloudy, and it's humid and hot, just like Florida, and the bugs are about this big.
Okay, the same size as like the alligators, or is that...
There actually are alligators in my backyard right now.
Oh my gosh!
Snapping turtles, cougar. There's a cougar I see every once in a while. We got lots of wildlife.
Oh wow, yeah. I've only been there once, but it's really nice, really beautiful weather.
Yeah, I'm on the shores of a little lake, and here a lake is a swamp. So.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Richard. I only did a small introduction. I'm excited to dive in. Can you go ahead and give us the full intro of yourself?
Well, I am Richard Lowe, and I'm a ghostwriter. Mm-hmm. And what that means is I write books for other people, and they almost never, in fact, never so far have had my name on the cover. Sometimes I'm included in the acknowledgments, sometimes not, but I'm paid up front for the book, so having my name on it is irrelevant to me. It's a good living. I started it about 10 years ago, and in that 10 years' time, I've ghostwritten, just started my 52nd book.
52nd. Wow.
And these are not simple books. These are books like on artificial intelligence, like science fiction novel. I mean, you name it, I've probably written it.
Awesome. So you just any genre, you'll go for that.
Any genre. There's a couple things I won't do, but basically just about any genre. And any type of book, my main criteria is I got to have a good relationship with the customer. So I make sure the client is going to be an adult, basically.
I love that. I'm going to ask you all these questions about, when do you pick up a project, things like that. But I would love to just backtrack. You said that you started this career 10 years ago. That's so recent. How did that happen? How did that get started?
Well, I started in tech about 1981, and I was the VP of a company, and then the vice president of another company, and then I became the IT director at Trader Joe's. and I managed all the computers and so forth in the corporate office at Trader Joe's, all the people and so forth. And after about 20 years there, I decided, it's time to move on. I didn't want to move on to another company. Decided I would prefer being a writer. Everybody kind of teased me, you'll never make as much money as a writer, blah, 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 blah. Well, now here, 10 years after I left, I'm making literally twice as much as I was making as IT director. And I get to work from home. I can dress however I want within reason, pick my own customers, et cetera, and I'm having a great time. It's a good career to go into my later years, and it's something I could probably do for my deathbed if I had to,
Yeah. I love that. Oh my gosh. So you had this whole other career, whole other world, Trader Joe's. I mean, most people know Trader Joe's. I've been there, right? That's amazing. And so you've kind of had this love, this passion to dive into. How did you begin? Did you have any maybe help or coursework, or you just dove into ghostwriting?
I've always been kind of a writer. My very first ghostwriting project, and I use that in quotes because it was never published, it was kind of amateur, was when I was 17 years old. Nobody knew my grandfather. They all thought he was a cranky old man, blah, blah, blah. He was horrible to get along with, snarly. And I thought, well, I want to know my grandfather. And these people, my parents are jerks. I didn't care what they thought. So I went and talked to my grandfather. Found out he was captured on Corregidor by the Japanese in World War II. He's part of the Yangtze River Patrol, which was, we had boats going up to China to help guard the embassies and stuff. He was a cook. He was captured. He took part in the Bataan Death March. 10,000 Americans started. I think only half of them made it. And then he was in a POW camp for 4 years. And he explained what all that meant. I kind of wrote his book. And then I thought, after I was done, I thought, you know what? He's earned the right to be as cranky as he wants. I mean, when you see somebody decapitated in front of you daily, you can be as cranky as you want. And people here talk about, they're stressed or they have PTSD. It's like, you don't even know what PTSD is.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, totally. So then you wrote this for him. Did he get to read it?
He read it. He passed away shortly thereafter. He had Alzheimer's. So I caught it just in time. He was in his 70s or 80s or something, so it's time. And it kind of went on the shelf and has disappeared since then. I don't even know where it is. But it was my first experience. And then I decided I had to move out. It was time to leave. My father gave me a gentle nudge. Get the hell out as soon as you're 18. That was kind of gentle. And I had to work for a living. So I got a job, bought my own car, apartment, moved. One day I was at home, one day I was out. I mean, it was just that quick. My parents, I didn't even tell my parents. I'm just moving up, bunch of friends, we moved. Take on a job as VP of consulting and vice president and managed a whole team. I was only like 19, never had a job before. I mean, other than I worked in a liquor store and stuff like that. So it was kind of new, kind of. And then did that a couple times. I also wrote the SCADA system. That's system controller data acquisition. That's the thing that controls the flow of something like water or oil or air or natural gas through pipelines. And I did the SCADA system for Las Vegas Valley Water District, which controls Hoover Dam, Ojai, Connecticut, and Ojai, California, and New Haven, Connecticut. And then I went back and became a VP of consulting again. And then I started working at Trader Joe's for 20 years. 1 month shy of 20 years.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. I love that. Yeah, have I been to the Hoover Dam? I think I have. I feel like I have. And that's amazing. Wow. So extensive background. You had that writing experience, and then you jump into a whole other world. And then did you retire and you're like, now I'm going to do writing? That was the epiphany? Was that the moment?
I didn't retire. I just decided it was time to jump out on my own. I had some money in the bank because, I had the retirement funds and stuff. So I wasn't taking a huge risk. It was a risk because, but I was already at risk because when you get into your 50s, you start not being able to find jobs. There's ageism everywhere.
Yeah.
You talk about all these different isms. Ageism is probably the worst because people are totally competent when they're 50 or 60 and they can't find jobs.
Yeah.
And so quite often they get into self-employment things, and that's what I did. So I wrote some books. on my own. I got 60 books on Amazon that I've written in that same 10-year period. So that's well over 100 books, and found out that selling books is hard. And that really wasn't what I wanted to do. So I moved to ghostwriting. Ghost wrote a book for a client who was a politician in Afghanistan before the Soviets invaded. So this was back in the 70s. Interesting story. He was put under house arrest because he was they had a coup and he was part of the opposite side in the government, under house arrest. And he got this phone call from somebody he never found out who it was, who said, "Leave now." That was his only words. "Leave now. Get your family and leave." And he took it at his word, and he got his family in the car and he left. He went to the bank to get his money, and the person at the bank who he didn't know said, "Don't check it all out. Take $1,000 and leave, because if you check it all out, they'll know you're leaving." So people were on his side.
Wow.
And he finally got down to Pakistan and got out, and I think he's long since passed away. But the Americans went back into Afghanistan, as you know, and the prison that he would have been brought to, they found like 15,000 skeletons underneath of people who were shot. So he would have been one of those.
Wow.
So that was the very first book I ghost wrote professionally, and it was they paid me a whole $1,000 for it. And so I decided after that, okay, it's time for me to move out on my own because I can do better than this. My boss at the time said, like that, "Yeah, you can't do better than this. You got a cushy here." The day after I left, I pulled in a $15,000 contract. The day after that, I had a $10,000 contract, and then I knew I could make it.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah.
And by that point, you had already had like your 60 books on Amazon?
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. There's so much to unpack here. I love this. Okay, let's just dive into this. Okay, what do you think about writer's block? What is your stance on that?
A writer's block usually means you've been staring at the screen too long, so you got this fixed distance, or you're stuck somehow. Obviously, you're stuck. And the way I found to get around it is you take a walk. The way I get around it is I work on 6 books at a time. 6 clients. So I switch from one to the other, and it clears up the writer's block. Or I go on a walk, or I work on model kits, or I go play with the cat, do something else, come back. If that doesn't work, okay, how's my diet? Okay, I ate wrong. How's my sleep? That's a big cause of it. Do I have somebody around me who's telling me I'm not as good as I think I am? That's a big one. So if you're having writer's block, look around and somebody belittling you. They're the problem. Get them out of your life if you can. So find these different things that are impacts on you and fix them, and you'll at least have a better life, and you'll probably get rid of the writer's block. If you still can't, then you just got to write. Just tough it out. Just write. And I get paid month to month by these clients, so I don't have a choice.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. And that's a good next question also. So like you have a retainer system. How do you even like begin to say, okay, here's a project. I'm interested in this project. How do you find these projects? Do they find you?
My website, I have a lead generation service, and I have cold emails going out. A couple other things, referral stuff. So I've tried them all. I get a steady stream of leads, and I'm really good at converting them because I can talk, as you can tell. And, I'm not a total dweeb. And they come to me, more or less, I invite them in and they come to me. And then we talk about ghostwriting and what it means. Usually they have a kind of a vague idea of what they want. So I work with them on that. Sometimes I propose a little analysis to get that vague idea down to a real idea, and then they're like all excited, and then they move forward. And sometimes we jump right in. Sometimes they can't afford a book, so let's do some blogs. Kind of switch it around. That's one reason why I want to talk to people instead of just doing email, is that maybe they have other needs.
Yeah.
So
you're really trying to find like the source of their problems, like how you can help them. What is a common, like, when people come to you, what is like their most common problem or their most common, like, this is why I need a ghostwriter?
They've either left their job voluntarily or not, and they want to do something else, much like I did. They want to start a coaching business is pretty common. They want to get venture cap. I've had one author who hired me to write a book. We wrote it. My very first one on my own. He was a $10,000 book. He got $30 million in venture cap from that book. And because he used his credibility to prove that he knew what he was talking about. So that's what a lot of them use it for. Children's book came along, and we wrote that because she has a charity and she wanted the children's book to support it. Young adult book, kind of like, I can't remember the name. Stein is the author. He's a couple movies. He's published more books than anyone else in the world. And he's published like 400 children's books. And so I published one in that same style. I also did a science fiction book for a famous rock star. Can't name him, but he's triple platinum. You know, I hope, what else?
Very cool. Do you, and when you get like into a client's awareness, and do you take on projects that you don't yet know the topic, but you're like going to research it, or do you kind of only take on topics that you're like, oh yeah, I already know this, I have some background in it? What's your take on that?
I never ever know the subject. That's common to all ghostwriters. Basically, the client is the subject matter expert, as we call it. He's the person who knows, he or she. Mm-hmm. And I'm the person who writes. So I do interviews. We work together so that they give me the information and I write it up. Mm-hmm. But I don't need to know the subject. I wrote books on AI and I didn't know a darn thing about AI.
So it's just like a whole new area where you can just learn and you're absorbing all this knowledge, but it's really that person who's giving you that knowledge.
Yes, and I do research, of course, also. That's included. And some of that's included in the cost, some is extra.
And I'm curious, you said like you do interviews with these person, just like make sure you're understanding them. What's like the feedback cycle like? How often do you give them the chapters, and what do they typically say? What kind of feedback do you look for just to make sure you're on the right track?
Well, the project starts with a 1 month get to know each other. So that's what the down payment is for. So 1 month we talk. I get to know them because I have to write as them. Mm-hmm. So it's like I'm being an actor and writing, pretending like I'm them. And then once that happens, we do a chapter a month usually. Sometimes 2 chapters a month if they're in a hurry, but that costs extra. But usually a chapter a month. So usually it winds up being an 8 month to a year long project. And at the end of that, I help them publish it and help them market it and so forth. And, usually they want their book to do something as a tool to help them promote themselves. One of my clients just finished a TED Talk. I have a goal to do a TED Talk. I'm writing a book on ghostwriting. Go figure. And I want to do a TED Talk on it. So I'm learning how to do that. And a lot of my clients have that goal. Do a TED Talk, publish your book, do lots of speeches. Keynote speeches. If you're a keynote speaker, you get 10, 20 grand a speech.
Yeah.
So that's what they use their book for, to pay for the book. And it works out pretty well.
That's amazing. Yeah. And I've kind of understood that similar process. What happens if like you're writing something and the client is like, oh no, this is totally off. Do you ever get that?
Sometimes it happens, especially in the first chapter or two, and I told them at the beginning, we're going to be adults. And if you have something that you don't like, you tell me. Yeah. And we work it out as adults. And that's what happens. Okay, I didn't like the way this chapter turned out. I just had one. Didn't like the way this chapter turned out. Okay, what didn't you like? What did you like? Let me rewrite it. Okay, how do you like the revision? That's pretty much spot on. Great, there you go. There's no whining. There's no upset. There's no nothing. It's just, what don't you like? Let's fix it.
Mm-hmm. So it gets closer. You're getting closer to their voice with kind of those iterations of that feedback.
Right. And the first chapter is usually very rough. And by the time we're done with the book, I'm them basically when I'm writing.
Yeah, that's super cool. I love that. Now, do you guys do any outlining together? You said that you do a lot of meetings in the beginning. Is there like outlining, or do you just go for it? Or does it depend on the client?
Well, we start with an outline. So we write the outline first. Mm-hmm. That outline becomes part of the scope of work. So we will write according to this outline. If you want to add chapters or subtract chapters later, then we have to go and renegotiate costs and things. Because one thing I learned as a software person, you got to handle what's called scope creep. Mm-hmm. That's where people add things and oh, it's just a minor thing. And by the time you get 50 of those minor things, it's not a minor thing anymore. So you handle scope creep by saying, okay, I'm going to give you this one for free, but after this you're going to get charged for it. Or you say, that's going to be an extra blah, blah. I charge by the word, so it's going to be an extra, cost for the words. Or extra hours. Sometimes for interviews, they charge by the hour. Just depends.
Yeah. And okay, that's so important that you said that, because even just like in my job, I have a full-time job as an animation producer, and scope creep is such like, man, you're right. I mean, it's like, okay, one, fine. But like when one becomes 100, oh my gosh, no, it's terrible. You can't manage that.
The time to catch scope creep is on the first one.
Okay.
It's exactly the same when you're managing somebody. The time to handle bad behavior is the first one. Mm-hmm. After that, it becomes accepted. Oh, you were fine with it before. Why aren't you fine with it now? And, you have to handle employees the same way. The first time they screw up is the first time you handle that. The first time they scope creep is the first time you handle it, because then the client knows. And, I'm not talking about it, we're not getting angry at each other or anything. It's just, we have to have that conversation. This is beyond the scope of work.
Right.
Here's what we need to do about that. It could be, I'll cover it. It could be going to cost you an extra $10,000. Who knows? It could be anything.
Amazing. Yeah. And thank you for saying that, because so like anybody in this audience will know that I had done a little bit of ghostwriting before I went into book coaching. But it's all those things that you're mentioning. That's exactly like what I'd hit. And I was like, didn't know what to do back then. So that's awesome. Okay. Now I want to ask, how do you know when you're this project, like, yeah, I want to do this project or this client? What kind of things do you look for?
Well, we have that first hour-long free consultation. And during that time, I'm keeping my ears and my eyes open, all my senses, to see how is this client reacting and how am I reacting to the client. And if I get any red flags, and if you've ever been dating, you know about red flags, you don't just say, oh, that's just me having it in my imagination or something. You look at it and see, what is that red flag caused by? Mm-hmm. If the client was, like I had one client, he offered me $190,000 for some books. Mm-hmm. It was a big project. This was earlier, so it was a really big project for me. But he was an absolute jerk, and the jerk was not the word that I would use. They'd use a more more R-rated word. And after 2 meetings, I just told him, I'm not going to work with you. And he was upset. And that alone told me I made the right choice. And, I turned away a $190,000 project because I was going to be miserable.
Yeah.
And I didn't need I don't need that. That's why I left, corporate. I don't need the toxicity. Mm-hmm.
So important. This is like your one of your dream careers. So it's like you should protect it, right?
Yep. And if I feel the toxicity coming on, I'll talk to the client. I'll say, look, we're getting a little hostile here, and I haven't really had this happen, but we're getting a little back and forth here. We don't need to do that. Let's just be adults, and we talk it out, and I'll fix it, mm-hmm. Or we'll figure out what's going on and we'll repair it, or we won't. In which case, maybe time for the project to end. Mm-hmm. That's actually a key to freelancing, and ghostwriting is a type of freelancing. Is you have to be in a financial position to be able to fire a client. And if you are afraid of firing that client because you're dependent on him, you need to fix that. Mm-hmm. Because first of all, during COVID, I lost 2 clients to COVID, gone, dead. One of them had long COVID. Sorry. So he was unable to pursue. The other one was a woman, and she died. You can lose a client at any time. That's why I like to keep between 7 and 10 clients going. Not all of them are books. Some of them are blogs. Some of them are books. Some of them are other things. I do marketing stuff, 1-pages and case studies and stuff like that. So keep those clients coming in. I got the small clients. I do LinkedIn and resumes and things. Also, the very tiny clients. You just got to keep those clients coming, because you need to be able to say no.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, having not all your eggs in one basket, right?
You need to be in a position where you're not afraid.
Yeah.
And that actually is the key to being a low-cost ghostwriter and a higher-charging ghostwriter is confidence.
Amazing. I was going to ask you that.
It's very simple. Higher cost. The ghostwriters who charge more, obviously they have more experience and they've done it before, but they're also confident. Mm-hmm. Can you do my book? Of course I can. Mm-hmm. That's what I tell them. Of course I can. I can do your book. But if you come off unconfident, you like, what do you think about this price per word? You're not confident.
Yeah. Yeah. And in addition to having like a few clients, how can writers get that confidence?
That's a tough question. You just got to do it. And one thing you can do is you can get a friend and you can drill it. Same thing I tell people who are looking for a job. Find a friend or a coach if you can, and just have that person be the interviewee and you be the interviewer, or whatever works out, and drill it for days. And for the confidence thing, do the same thing. Get a coach. Coaches are great. They sound expensive, but they're not, because they're a one-time charge. Remember, all of this stuff, if you have a business, is deductible on your income tax. So get a coach for a few hours and say, I need to drill out confidence. Or join Toastmasters.
Yeah.
Toastmasters is a great way to build confidence. You're going to have people shooting you down all day long. And that's what they do. And then you get your turn to shoot people down, and it's kind of interesting. You know what Toastmasters is?
Yeah, I used to. Exactly. Yeah, I was in Toastmasters actually, and
me too.
Oh yeah, it's helped a lot. I mean, you have to get up there. You have to be in front of people. Like, okay, this is it. You have 5 seconds to prepare a topic. Let's go.
I've always been introverted. I'm still an introvert. Introversion is simply a person who gains power by being alone, and an extrovert is somebody who gains power by being in a group. But I was super shy. Mm-hmm. You notice I'm not shy. Mm-hmm. Shyness is the inability to talk to people. And the way I defeated that is when my wife passed away, I picked up the camera and I wanted to defeat grief and shyness. So I started taking pictures. And I took pictures of all the national parks in the Southwest U.S. So I hiked them all and took pictures. And then I moved into Renaissance fairs, and they hired me. I took thousands of pictures at all the Renaissance fairs. Actually, I have about 400,000 pictures at the Renaissance fair.
Oh, wow. And
then I started taking pictures of belly dancers and wrestlers and salsa dancers, and you name it, I was taking pictures of it. And I was part of all those communities. And then one day I was like, okay, I don't need this anymore. I'm not shy anymore. And it was done. And I really haven't picked up a camera since. But I defeated the shyness, because you cannot survive as a freelancer if you're shy. Mm-hmm. And that's part of being confident. If you're shy, you come off as not shy. They don't think you're shy. They think you're not self-confident.
Right, right.
So go to Toastmasters, fix it. Get into Kiwanis Club or something. Start giving speeches. If you're a woman, go to your women's group. Start giving talks. Host some book reading groups at the library. Do all these things and get over that self-doubt and whatever, and become confident.
That's amazing.
And then you can charge higher rates.
Yeah, and exactly, because that was what I had hit, is because I wasn't confident, and so I had my projects, but I was really like lowballing myself, which burnt me out, right?
Oh yeah.
And so that's what you're saying. Just it so hits the nail on the head. I'm like, yeah, that's what it was. Wow.
It's simply confidence. Mm-hmm. Combined with you've got the experience and the skills. Obviously, if you can't write, you're not going to make it. You're not going to survive as a ghostwriter. Obviously, if you can't deal with people, you're not going to survive as a freelancer. That kind of thing. You have to deal with people.
Yeah. I love this. Okay. I wanted to ask a question a while ago, but I kind of got sidetracked. So we kind of found out why people would want a ghostwriter when they're writing nonfiction. What about people who are writing fiction? What is their problem that you're solving as a ghostwriter?
Usually they can't write, and they write a manuscript and they realize, oh my God, this is horrible. So they need somebody to help them write it. In that case, sometimes it's so bad that I send it to a book coach, and poor book coach. And sometimes I just tell them, you need to go take a grammar class. A lot of them. And sometimes I can help them, and then I charge ghostwriting rates, because I'm basically ghostwriting their input instead of interviews is what they wrote. Did I answer your question there?
Yeah, kind of like, so for what I understood is that they can't write, but they want to have a fiction book.
Fiction. Yeah, or they just don't have the time. Or they've had a book that's been sitting around for years that they haven't quite been able to finish. I had one lady come to me. It was kind of my most amusing and most touching story. She came to me, and she came to me in such a way that I was thinking, there's no way she can afford a book. But I'll go. She's offered to buy me lunch at Panera Bread, and I like Panera Bread, so what the hell? So I went to meet her and her whole family, and my first thoughts, and I mean no degradation because of this, there's nothing wrong with people who live in trailers, but she struck me as she lives in a trailer park. Just the way she's dressed, the missing tooth, the whole thing, the stereotypical trailer park, not where people really, and I was like, oh, they're not, I'm happy to have the conversation. Well, she had the money, and she had a dream journal through her whole life, and she wanted me to novelize it, and it's all handwritten. Oh my God, handwritten, and thousands of pages. So I had to get through this, and I had her sister help, and we wrote a novel. It's on Amazon. It's called Gators in the Soup. And it's we finished the novel, and it took about a year. We did monthly payments, and then she passed away 3 months later. But she got her book.
Oh my gosh!
And she was so proud that she had her book, and then it was the best thing she ever did, and blah 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 blah. And finally, her dreams were in a book, and it's one of my most touching things that I've ever done. I really enjoyed working with her, and she lived in a trailer. I was right.
Wow. This is interesting because actually I wanted to, it sounds like it was a touching moment for you. It was kind of maybe a highlight of your career, or one of your highlights so far, it sounds like. I wanted to ask, what are the other benefits, the unexpected benefits to ghostwriting? Because some people might want to just do all their books under their own name, right? Just like you've done. But what are some additional benefits as to being a ghostwriter?
Well, ghostwriting, the first is the financial. If you're a ghostwriter, just like any freelancer, you're charging as you go and you're getting paid as you go. I charge in advance, so there's a down payment and then there's a charge for each month. I do monthly payments. So you don't have that problem with being a writer where if you're self-publishing writer, you're figuring out how to make money from this and you have to market it. And if you're going traditional, it's darn hard to get into a traditional publisher. I've had three authors that did it out of 51.
Wow.
Yeah, they were able to do it, and they enjoyed it, and they hated the process. They enjoyed the end result, but it takes a couple of years to get through that process. So that's an unexpected benefit is you can buy. You're not having to put up with that. The client is. The client's worried about how to market the book, and I've become better at marketing since then. So I now offer marketing services along with the book, so I help them market it, with the caveat that I'm not a marketer. I tell them that, and that I'm not going to market the book for them, but I'm going to help them. So we start the marketing when we start the book.
Oh, nice. We
don't start it when the book's published. We start it at the beginning, and that's working out very, very well. Another benefit is it's a lot of fun working with different people. I mean, I've worked with, I would say, interesting enough, probably 4/5 of my customers have been men and 1/5 women, which I find fascinating because I would have thought it would be the other way around. Mm-hmm. But I guess that reflects the current ratio in business world. Most of my clients are business people, C-level business people.
Yeah.
So they're VPs or CIOs or even CEOs, founders, things like that. And I think that's more male dominated these days, but it would surprise me. I figured, with all this talk about equal rights, women would have been up there, but they aren't. Mm-hmm. And that's probably something that should be fixed, but that's another conversation for another day. So I get to meet all these different people, and it's quite interesting to be working with the C-level person, a CEO or CIO of a $100 billion company.
Yeah.
And the next day be working with somebody who's in a startup that's making $50,000 and seeing the difference, and one's very successful and one's not. One's writing a book on how to be successful at business. One's writing a book on here's the mistakes you should avoid. And then the rock star is a subject all on its own. He was quite an interesting person to write for. Two rock stars, actually.
Oh, 2 rock stars so far. Oh, my gosh. And are their books already out there and published?
They are not. Well, one of them didn't do a book. One of them I did. I also do LinkedIn profiles, so I did his LinkedIn profile.
Oh.
That one I can name. He's the lead singer of Boston.
Oh, cool.
From years and years ago, and now he runs a tech company, and I did his LinkedIn stuff.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He's a really nice guy.
I
Yeah.
love that. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Now, I know this is going by so quickly for me. I love this.
I have plenty of time, so if you want to go longer, it's fine with me.
Okay, great. Maybe an extra couple of minutes. That would be awesome. I wanted to ask about your storytelling chops, right? So you have to tell different stories. You have to tell nonfiction stories and fictional stories. How did you learn those different story structures? And like maybe what else are you learning? How do you keep yourself on top of all of that?
Well, there's Udemy.com, which has a bunch of classes. You always make sure you get the specials because you get the $149 class, quote, quote, for $15, or their free specials or whatever. So I'll never buy it at full price. There's other places like that. I forget all their names. I would stick with Udemy pretty much. There's writing critique groups. Definitely take advantage of those if they're any local. Sometimes you will find some of them that are weird, meaning they're writers who they sit there. To me, they're weird. They critique your grammar. I don't need to go to a writing critique group to critique my grammar. I need to go to a writing critique group to make sure that the story flows right and, that it makes sense and blah, blah, blah. So I don't go back to those, if I need grammar check, I'll send it to an editor and pay her $10, or $20, or somebody on Fiverr for $10 will check my grammar in my article. Fiverr is a great resource for basically amateur stuff. So if you just need something quickly proofread, Fiverr is great. If you need a professional job, hire a professional. Don't use Fiverr. If you need a quick cover just to see what it looks like, Fiverr. If you need a real cover that you're actually going to use, hire an artist.
Yeah.
By the way, that's something I recommend for people who are book covers is hire an artist. Don't use stock photos.
Yeah.
I mean, you're paying my rates for a book and I'm not cheap. So, what's an extra $750 for an artist to make a picture for you?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you're unique.
Yeah, you're unique. And then, everything that's going on with AI right now, it's just like it's too, not dangerous, but I do want to use the word dangerous. Like, it's overlapping. You don't know what you're picking up. Yeah, absolutely. So that actually.
Besides, AI is a crappy writer.
Yeah.
It is.
It is. I've seen it. And I'm just like, that is a lot of passive voice.
Oh, it is passive voice. It's way too wordy. And you put it in originality.ai and it says 100% AI. And publishers will not publish things that are written by AI.
Yeah. And Amazon too. Amazon, that's like it now. It's like a separation between AI generated content and like AI prompted content, something like that. Like,
you can use AI to help you write the story. You shouldn't use AI to write the story.
Yeah, exactly.
So use it as a tool. I don't use AI to write stories or even help me write stories. I use it as a little tool sometimes. Does this make sense kind of stuff? Because you can ask it human questions, did what I just wrote make sense? And AI will come back and say, yeah, or you can make it sound better if you do this and this and this.
Yeah.
Then I say, okay, fine, I'll go rewrite it on my own. But
yeah,
that's what I use AI for. It's nowhere near good enough to be used professionally.
It's not.
Because I can pick up on it. I mean, I look at something, yep, that's AI. And I just did that with a potential client. I said, you wrote your site with AI, didn't you? It's like, how'd you know? It's like, I've been doing this for a long time.
I did that the other day. I also will help students learning with essays and stuff. And one of the kids turned in an AI essay, and I read it. I was like, okay. And I gave it back to them. I said, you need to rewrite this. This is AI. And then they didn't say anything. They're like, okay.
And they'll deny it. They'll deny, oh, no.
Yeah.
It's like, look, I'm letting you off easy by letting you redo it.
Yeah.
One of the things that I also do, I will not write somebody's term papers and things, but I will help them. If they write it themselves and they need somebody to basically polish it, that's a service I offer.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I actually enjoy doing that too. Okay, so then I had a question about. So we talked about story, and now you mentioned something about maybe also getting some help as far as critique groups. Do you utilize resources like feedback while you're doing the ghostwriting process, or is it just entirely between you and the client?
Well, the stuff that I write from clients is confidential, so I don't use critique groups. There are some ghostwriters who do. Those are violating ethics of ghostwriting.
Oh.
You should not do that unless you have permission from the client, of course.
That makes sense.
What you do is you use that to critique your own work, or I sometimes use AI to say, is this well written, or what do you think of this? But yeah, you don't use client stuff at critique groups at all.
That makes sense. Okay, cool. But but not even for grammar or anything, because then that'll be sharing it. Oh, okay.
No, but you can send it to an editor. You can say, Mr. Client, I'd like to send this to an editor. That the editor is going to charge you X, Y, Z. Or do you want me to? I'll let you talk to them, and then they bill through the editor. I don't do cross. They bill direct, and then the editor comes back. And a word about editors. One thing you have to do to become a professional at writing is learn to accept criticism, and that means. To me, there's a difference between critique and criticism. Critique is it's actionable and it's precise. This character here is, you have it as a man, but it feels like a woman to me in the way that person acts. That's critique. You can act on it. You can say, okay, you can ask questions like, why does it feel like a woman to me instead of a man, to you instead of a man? Oh, well, because this and this and this and this, or whatever you're trying to get across. This is an alien being in this science fiction novel, but it's just like a human. It's not an alien at all. It's a human being in an alien body. Criticism is, you're a lousy writer. I don't accept criticism. I accept critique. So you have to learn to accept critique, and you have to learn to reject criticism. I mean, reject it hard. Like, the hell are you doing calling me names for? Knock it off, dude. And even to the point where you break it off. So if you go to a writing critique group and they're criticizing you, find a new group. Or get that person ejected. If they're critiquing your work, you need to be able to do that. If you can't accept that, you're going to fail.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And you're right. I mean, you have to get that negativity out of your circle. It's not going to help.
The thing that will kill you fastest in any creative field, whether it be animators or whether it be writing critiquers, writers, or whatever, is somebody who's around you who is negative. And usually it is very, very subtle. It'll be just a little word or a little tone of voice, that sneer. You just lost your creativity. You just went to writer's block and you doubt yourself. You didn't even know what happened.
Yeah.
So you have to keep your eyes open and see that, and that person needs to go.
Yeah.
Or fix it. And you need to handle them with the kid gloves on first time and with the solid iron glove the second time. And the third time, they're out of your life. That's as simple as that. Because you will not be a writer or an animator or anything with that around you. It won't work.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Now, I did have another question. I'm just going to pivot because I had so many questions. So you mentioned that you do a chapter a month for a client.
Yeah.
So you have that. That's like your pacing. What about for people who are just entering ghostwriting? How can they start to scope a project?
Well, that can be tough. If you don't have any experience under your belt, I would recommend writing your own book. Getting an idea of your own pacing, getting an idea of your own style, getting an idea of how good of a writer you are. And then kind of maybe have a writing buddy that you are maybe in a writing critique group or somebody in the local area that you can sit down with and you can work out where you need help and where they need help and work it out together. You might need help because you're too shy. You might need help because you can't speak to an audience. You're never going to be a ghostwriter if you can't do what I'm doing right now, which is blah, 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 and listening. You have to be able to listen, and it's active listening where you shut up and listen. Too many freelancers, all of them, will be thinking of their answer before the question's even asked. You just got to knock it off. Clear your mind, listen, find out what the question is, and then answer the question. So don't interrupt them like you're doing. You're not interrupting. You're listening to me, and then you form your next question after I finish with mine. What I'm saying, you need to do the same thing with your clients. And if you don't do that, you're turning away clients because they're not going to come back.
They can feel that. They can feel that kind of awkwardness, the flags on the other side. Yeah.
And one way to get around it is to get your writing buddy and drill it. Just sit down with each other, across the table, and just you be the rude client, he be the, then the good client, and then the really nice client who's actually not a nice client. Drill all these things. It'll also help in life because don't underestimate the power of drilling. And you know what I mean by drilling?
Like getting to the source of the question?
No, it means like sitting down with a friend. Well, it shouldn't be a friend. Sitting down with somebody else and having them throw scenarios at you. Like, okay, I'm going to be the rude client today.
Oh.
I'm going to be the Karen, as you know, as they say, and I'm going to scream at you and yell at you. You need to handle it, and then you just do it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to be the client, the typical client today. Drill it, run through it. It's like drilling is like exercising. You got to, when you're a cheerleader, for example, you got to go out there and do cheerleading stuff.
Yeah.
Well, when you're a writer, and a freelancer, you need to do all the freelancing and writing stuff. The best way to do that is to practice it on somebody who's not a customer, and then go do it with a customer. Because you don't want to be learning on customers. You want to be learning with somebody who's not. And the best way to do that is find somebody who you can work with who's in the same field. Mm-hmm. You've probably got freelancers that you know. Just grab one of them and say, hey, you want to, let's play a game. Mm-hmm. I'll be the client, you be the freelancer, and I'm going to be the nasty client today. Mm-hmm. And then you just keep being nasty until that person is like, I can handle this. And maybe one of the solutions is I'm not going to work with you. That's fine. Nasty shouldn't be tolerated for very long.
Right. Yeah.
People get entitled because they've been tolerated.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Stop tolerating it.
Yeah. That's brilliant. And I never thought about practicing that other side, really, so that's amazing. So everybody out there, practice not just the writing side, but the business side and the connection side.
That's the thing as a freelancer and a ghostwriter that you really need to keep your eye on is the business side. For example, you have to pay taxes. Mm-hmm. You have to keep track of those taxes. Generally, you pay them as you go. Not when you get the money. You pay. Just like the job does, you take part of your money out and send it to the IRS. You have to get a business license. Usually cities require a license. Go investigate that. It's a service, so you don't really pay sales tax on it. But if you're reselling books and things, you need to pay sales tax. Go get a sales tax license. Mm-hmm. All these things. Look at the business side. Take a business class. Mm-hmm. It's not something that's obvious to ghostwriters or freelancers because they kind of think of themselves as like just a person, but they're a business. Get a business license. Be real. And if you're big enough, incorporate. Mm-hmm. That'll cost you a couple grand, but if you're at the point where it'll save you probably 10 grand a year or 5 grand a year or whatever in taxes because corporates get taxed at a different rate. So you can save some money by being incorporated. I should take my own advice there. I need to incorporate.
I love that. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. And then you said something that it's actually a little bit earlier, not related to business, but you're talking about sitting with a client. And I want to ask this question about voice. What are some tips on just making sure that you can get their voice as you're writing?
Talk to them a lot. Mm-hmm. Schedule interviews and talk, especially if you're writing a book and you're getting paid for a book, you're getting paid hopefully big money. So you've got the time, build it into your contract, the time, and talk to them and learn how they speak and but it's not how they speak, it's how they want the book to speak. So you're not learning them, you're learning their ideal of them. It's different. I had one client who's, he swears a lot. And I said, do you want me to swear in the book? And he says, absolutely. I want you to swear no more than like 3 swear words a page. I was like, 3 a page? Yeah. And these were the rough swear words and F-bombs and stuff. And like, okay, you're the client. Yeah. Made him put it in writing though.
Yeah. Add that in there. I love that.
Quick email really back and forth, Also, of course, I record all meetings so that, because that's important also. First of all, you need to be aware of the state you're in. In Florida, it requires permission to record, but some states don't. So I use Zoom because Zoom asks you up front, do you want to be recorded? Oh. And so they are aware that they're being recorded. That's all you need. If they're not aware they're being recorded, you've just committed a felony. Mm-hmm. And that's not good. Right. It's probably not anything anybody's ever going to worry about, but these little things add up. Yeah. So, but record your conversations. That's one of the advantages of using Zoom and doing remote. Record them so that you can go back to them. You can look at transcripts and you can record what the client said because they won't remember it. if it's to their disadvantage. You said I could use swear words. I don't remember that. Well, it's on page 2 of the interview that we had here, and here's the transcript. Oh, yeah, I guess I did say that.
Yeah, you did.
And the reason why you want to do that is because if they want you to change it, you need to charge them more for it because it's a change request. Changes the scope. You wrote it with swear words. Now they want them out. That's great. Now, if you put them in there without their permission, you're going to take it out on your own dime. But if you have their permission, you're going to charge them for it.
Yeah. So always keeping like the fact that this is a book, but it's a project. It's a project. It's a customer relationship. You have to take all that into account. The business side, scope of work, any other additions that are being made, all of that to make sure you're having a solid business. Yeah.
Remember, you're the ghostwriter. You're the freelancer. You're managing the timeline. You're the manager of the project. Unless you're working for somebody who is managing the project. That's sometimes when I'm writing blogs, there'll typically be a marketing director who's managing the whole project. That's an exception. But if it's just me and you, I'm managing the project. Don't let the client take control. Never. Don't let them collaborate on the book. Don't put it out there for them to work on. Don't let them see review copies beforehand. You manage the project. So you have to be in control. If you're not in control, you're suddenly perceived as an amateur. Stay in control. If I was doing an animation project, I would do the same thing. It's my project, unless I've got an overall manager.
How can you tell when a client is trying to take control or they are taking control?
They'll stop meeting milestones. They will try and add things to the scope that shouldn't be added. They'll talk down to you. All these kind of things, and you need to cut them off at the butt. It's just like I said earlier. People become entitled because you let them be entitled. You're training them. Well, if you train your client by letting him or her be entitled, then whose fault is that? So when they say, I want you to add another chapter, you say, okay, well, I'm going to have to look at the extra cost for that. You mean there's an extra cost? Of course there is. It's extra time for me. Well, what if we just cut down the length of an earlier chapter? Well, that's fine. Then it won't be an extra cost. And thus, they haven't taken advantage of you. And so you have to look out for those little red flags, just like you would in dating. You don't tolerate anything because, especially on that first interview, like on the first date, dating advice, everybody. If they're not on their best behavior on the first date, that's the best they're ever going to be.
100%.
So if they're not on their best behavior, kick them out because they're not going to get better.
Yeah, you're right. It's the first date.
Yeah,
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, they're going to be dressed up. They're going to be on their nines. Everything's going to be perfect. They're going to bring flowers. Man or woman, I don't know. But and if they don't do any of that stuff, they're never going to do it.
Yeah. They're not going to change.
And don't think you can train them.
That is so true.
Well, you don't even try and change the other person. It's not the same with the client. You're not going to change them. Forget it.
Forget it.
They'll make you think you can change them up until the moment that you're married, and then they'll stop.
No, that's it.
Man or woman. It doesn't matter. It's the same game.
I love that. And that's such a good comparison. It's because I feel like a lot of people can relate to that. They're like, oh, I see. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's very simple to me. Now, when I was younger and dumber, I was dumber than a box of rocks, I didn't know any of that stuff. Yeah. And I married my wife on the third date, literally the same day as our third date.
Oh, that's amazing.
Potluck wedding, yeah.
Oh, that's romantic. That's so cute.
Yeah, it turned out to be the wrong thing to do because I didn't even know her and she didn't know me and we hated each other. But, red flags be damned. And there were like massive red flags.
You're like, it's so festive. There's so many flags here.
Yeah, there was huge flags and she had the same flags on with me, I'm sure. And we're like, whatever. We love each other. We'll make it work. No.
I love that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This has been amazing, Richard. I know we're getting close to actually an hour here. So I wanted just to touch base first. Was there anything that you wanted to share that I didn't cover before we even get to the wrap up?
Well, let me look at my list of 45 different things. No.
We're on number 2.
I am happy to do another interview if there's more you want to cover. So just you can just create an appointment using the tool if you want.
I love that.
Yeah, you don't have to go through that thing we used. You can just use my scheduling link. You can go to my website and you can find it, or I can send it to you.
Perfect.
We could probably schedule a 15-hour podcast and talk.
That sounds great. When is your ghostwriting book coming out? Do you have a date for that yet?
I just started it. The idea is to do a ghostwriting book, do some blogs with it, and then do a TED Talk at the end of it. And then that's a state TED Talk, and then do a national TED Talk. I have to overcome the extreme nauseating fear that I have about doing a TED Talk, but I'll figure it out.
Yeah. And I guess it's like you said, like you're going to practice, you're going to tackle it, and the next thing you're going to be on stage, and we're going to be like, oh my God, I know that guy.
I'm going to be on stage, and I'm going to be terrified, but whatever, I survived marriage. I can survive anything.
That's a good analogy. I'll be there. I'll totally watch it because this is fascinating. This has been amazing because I know a lot of people who are listening, they want to be writers and they want different ways to get there. And this is one of those ways that fascinates them. So this is awesome.
Advice I would give to people who want to be writers is write. Mm-hmm. Instead of starting with a novel, that's a big bite. Start with short stories. Start with a 1,000-word story. And keep it at 1,000 words. You have to enforce that limit because you'll be tempted to go over. So do a 1,000-word short story on subject whatever. Mermaid falls in love with centaur. Pick a prompt. How do they work that out? I don't know.
Yeah.
Or space aliens attack New York. But you have to do it in 1,000 words. Yeah. Then move up to more articles and more articles until you're writing, or stories until you're writing more. Have those reviewed in writing critique groups. Don't be surprised if they come back crap, stupid. That's part of the game. They're going to be bloody. If you're in a writing critique group and it doesn't come back bloody, you're in the wrong writing critique group. That's the purpose. If it comes back, this is fine, you're in the wrong group.
Yeah.
And then
not real truth there. Yeah.
Get a customer to write their blogs, to fix the front of their website, to do some marketing copy, whatever. Keeping in mind, copywriting is very different from writing. Mm-hmm. They are not the same animal. And good copywriters can get paid $1 million a page. But that's because that page will generate $100 million to the company who's buying it.
Right.
So there's a big difference. I'm not a copywriter. I mean, I do copywriting, but I'm not a copywriter in that sense. That's probably going to be out this year. That's my goal, to have the book out this year and do the TED Talk next.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to that. So let's hop on again. I would love to talk about it. People can buy it. And now that we're at the tail end of this, where can people find you and find your works?
On thewritingking.com. So that's THE, writingking.com is basically my home base. That's where all my articles are, contact forms, things like that. Go there and you'll be able to connect with me and schedule a talk. If you want to if you've got a writing problem and it's short, you can schedule an hour and I'll charge you for that. So if you need, I have this article, I'm stuck, can you help me? That would be an hour's worth of coaching. If you wanted a full book, well, then we can talk about that. And then you can schedule a free hour up front and we'll talk about that. If you need LinkedIn profile needs to be done, you can schedule that and we'll work on that. But yeah, that's the only way actually to get hold of me is the website or my LinkedIn. But you can get to my LinkedIn from my website.
Awesome.
Or they can call you.
Yeah, I got your contact info. So
at all hours of the day.
I love it. Thank you so much, Richard. This has been awesome. It's really inspirational, motivational, and I know there's people out there who are like, this is awesome. This is what I want to do. So thank you for being part of the show, from the How to Write a Book podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And do hang on after the show. I've got a question for you.
All right. Perfect. Let's do it.
Okay.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of the How to Write a Book podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you want to keep up with me and my work, check out the website blackheartedstudios.com. That's www.blackheartedstudios.com. And follow me on Instagram at Massiel Writes. That's at MASSIEL Writes. As a book coach and publisher, I'm passionate about helping aspiring authors bring their stories to life. So if you've been dreaming of writing a book and don't know where to start, head to my website and let's chat. You get a free 30 minutes on me. Thanks again for listening, and don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks.